Hi guys, Matt V's Movies back for another video, and today's video is the films that I watched, and these kind of are probably one-time watches for me. I'm not going to say they're bad films, but they're films that I probably wouldn't pick up on physical media. I may watch the odd one or two again, and I'm also going to include some of the films that I didn't see in 2025, but I would like to see sort of going into next year. Films that maybe you've watched already. Some of these may be in your top 10 films of the year. It's all subjective, isn't it? So, but yeah, I'm going to sort of just list, not in any particular order. I'm not going to number these. I'm just going to sort of tell you the ones that I watched and just sort of what I thought of them. So we're going to get into that today on the video. So welcome back. So if you're new here, my name's Matt and this channel is all about movies. We look at 4Ks, Blu-rays, DVDs and VHS. We talk about films, we look at equipment, we talk about sort of the home entertainment industry, what's going on, physical media chats, all this sort of stuff. So that's, if you really enjoy that kind of subject, why not subscribe to the channel? It's completely free to do so. And it really helps me out if you can support the channel. Okay, so I've got a list in front of me of sort of films that I've watched but wouldn't necessarily revisit anytime soon. The first one is 28 Years Later, and this is the follow-up to 28 Months Later. No, 28 Weeks Later, not Months Later. I think they should have done a Months Later personally, but there we go. None of the sort of original cast in this one, although I've heard that Cillian Murphy may be making an appearance in the next film in this franchise. But this one's got Aaron Taylor-Johnson in it in the main lead. Ralph Fiennes is in the film, and it's kind of all set on an island off the sort of Scottish coast. Off of Scotland, and it was entertaining. I enjoyed the film. I quite like the zombie genre, but it's the sort of film that I could watch it once, enjoy it for what it was, but it's not necessarily something I would necessarily pick up. I guess horror zombie films are part of the horror genre. And whilst I do like some zombie films, certainly the Resident Evil franchise that I do have, it's not a go-to thing that I'm, really that into. But I enjoyed it for what it was. Oh, I'll watch the Bone Temple, I think it is. It's coming up early in 2026. But it's not really something I would rush back to see. So next up is the film Weapons. Now, I think for a lot of you out there, this will probably be in your top 10, quite high up. It was very, very popular. And, I can see why probably horror fans really enjoyed this one. It was something different, entertaining to a point. But again, for me, very much with the horror genre, is a kind of one and done for me. I may watch this again at some point down the line in years to come, but it's certainly something I wouldn't rush back to see. Like I say, horror isn't really my sort of go-to franchise, but I enjoyed Weapons. And so I had some sort of different ideas about it. Whether we'll get to see a sort of prequel to this to sort of find out more about the sort of witch to sort of controlling everything, that'd be interesting to see. I'll probably watch that, but again, it's more than likely just going to be the one-time watch for me. Next up was a sort of sci-fi film called The Astronaut, starring Kate Mara as the main lead in this film, and Lawrence Fishburne. Again, it was interesting idea, sort of this woman sort of having these sort of flashbacks. She was an astronaut. She has a family, but she's kind of like in this house, sort of recuperating from being up in space, and events unfold, and you find out there's a lot more to her situation than sort of initially seen. She's seen a lot of strange things going on, and I found it entertaining. But again, rewatchability for me, kind of once you found out what happened, it's not something I would necessarily want to pick up on physical media, or rewatchability wasn't really there. It was an interesting watch, just a one-time watch, and that's The Astronaut. Stepping back into the sort of horror genre is the film Together, starring Dave Franco and Alison Brie as a couple, and I do believe they're sort of a couple in real life as well. So I guess the chemistry between the two was real. It's again sort of one of those films that's, I don't know, it's got a lot of sort of plot holes in it where you can think, well, why did they do this? Why did they do that? It kind of touched on that body horror sort of genre, which, I don't know, it's not really one for me. I'll kind of watch them, but I'm kind of sort of sitting there sort of thinking, oh, this is a bit squeamish. Some of these body horror films I can't sort of get through. The Substance being one, I kind of turned that off. I just didn't think that was great at all. It just got very... this one, the ending to it, to me, was a bit... okay. Again, it was a different idea, I suppose, something that hasn't been done before. Although it had kind of sort of the Thing vibe about it, certainly at the start of the film, where you see the two dogs in the cave and they're kind of getting joined together. I got a sort of the Thing vibe off of that, but that's kind of where it really sort of ended, really. Nothing like the Thing. It was entertaining for a one-time watch, but nothing I would revisit. That's Together. Now we step into the action genre. And again, Jason Statham did another film. He does sort of a few of these, usually one a year. And this time, The Working Man. Again, I saw this on streaming. He's good at what he does, isn't he, Jason Statham? He does the action films. They're entertaining to watch. Very formulaic. You know what you're going to get. Certainly not on the level of John Wick for me. But, they're sort of films that I'd sort of say you see in January, February time. Certainly not sort of smash hits. Entertaining stuff that you kind of see on the TV or sort of, streaming. It was all right, but nothing amazing. So that's The Working Man. So next up, we go back into the horror genre and the film Frankenstein, the Netflix film, which did get a limited cinema release, I think, for a couple of weeks. But really enjoyed this one. I do have the Frankenstein film sort of back made in the sort of 2000s, starring Kenneth Branagh and Robert De Niro. I have that one on 4K, the Arrow edition of that. Really enjoyed that. I've always liked the sort of Wolfman, Dracula, Frankenstein, the classic characters. That kind of horror I've always enjoyed. And this one, again, is a slightly different telling of the story once again. Really good, very good production. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Would I pick it up on physical media? Probably not, because like I say, I've got that Robert De Niro, Kenneth Branagh edition, which I would say is still my go-to edition. I enjoyed this. I thought it was really good. I know for a lot of people, it's probably maybe their favourite Frankenstein film now. Guillermo del Toro obviously did this. He directed it, and you can see his kind of footprint on the film. I really enjoyed it. But again, it's not something I would revisit anytime soon. I probably will watch it again maybe in a few years, but it's not something that I would look to pick up. I don't actually know whether they'll release this on physical media because it is Netflix. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. I wouldn't be surprised if this probably landed on Criterion at some point. But yeah, Frankenstein 2025. Yeah, it was very good. Next up is the film Wolfman. Again, another sort of telling of the Wolfman sort of story. And this was done by the guy that did The Invisible Man, the most recent Invisible Man, which I do have on physical media. I do have a really nice everything blue edition of that one, with the 4K Standard Amaray, not the steelbook, but I do have the sort of box and that for that film. And it's the same director. He's come back to do The Wolfman, and again done from the perspective of the actual werewolf, what he's going through, the changes that he sees. I like this sort of fact that he started to not understand what his wife was saying. Obviously he was going through these changes, and then, as I say, the perspective of it was very different this time round. An entertaining film. Don't think it was as good as The Invisible Man. I don't know whether I would pick this up on physical media. Possibly if I could get it for a cheap price, maybe on Blu-ray or 4K. I don't know. Yeah, but I really enjoyed it. But again, not in any rush to see it. And that's The Wolfman. So next up was the film Heads of State. So this was an Amazon Prime film, and it starred John Cena and Idris Elba. I think John Cena was the President of the United States, and Idris Elba was the Prime Minister. And again, it's sort of an action film. These two thrown together, and they've got to, sort of fight terrorists and all this sort of stuff. A bit daft, really. Obviously, you've got the president and the prime minister both sort of shooting guns. Bit daft, really, because it's not really believable, is it? But it was an entertaining film. But again, very much sort of fitting into that sort of streaming films. Very forgettable for me. One-time watch, not something I would necessarily watch again unless I didn't have anything else to watch. But yeah, it was okay. That's Heads of State. Next up was a film I saw on Disney Plus, and it's a remake of the sort of 1990s film The Hand That Rocks the Cradle. Now, the original film, strangely enough, had seen the original earlier in the year, and that starred Rebecca De Mornay. Thoroughly good film, that one. Really, really good, about a sort of babysitter, nanny that sort of comes into a sort of home environment, mum and dad, daughter, and then the baby. And she slowly sort of takes over, wanting to basically have the baby for herself, and almost sort of wanting to oust the mother from the sort of family unit. And this film is kind of a modern take on that. This time round, it's almost a bit of a flip. So they kind of the babysitter, sort of living nanny, I suppose, as she becomes, kind of sort of forms a bit of a relationship with the mother, and there's a little bit of sort of sexual tension that goes on there, and it's a bit of a different take on it. I did find the husband a very weak character, almost sort of, I don't know, the guy who played him, I didn't think he was a very good actor, but he just seemed very, very lame as a sort of a husband trying to protect his family. Didn't do a lot, and I came away from the film feeling very disappointed. Maybe people that haven't seen the original film might prefer this version. I guess it's quite modern sort of look on things, a little bit of a different slant on stuff. Um, the idea is the same, but for me, it just didn't live up to the original film. So, yeah, The Hand That Rocks the Cradle remake in 2025. Yeah, I certainly won't be watching this again. Okay, another film that I went to see at the cinema, and yeah, one time watch for me, this one. Came away quite disappointed, if I'm honest, and that is Superman 2025. Yeah, I was hoping for good things with James Gunn, and I think what we got personally was a sort of comic book version of Superman on screen. Um, I just came away feeling it was very average. The guy playing Superman, he was good enough, but I wasn't really a fan of the sort of whole dynamic of it. Justice Gang and all this sort of thing. Uh, I much prefer a darker side to DC. I did like the Snyderverse. There are rumours that if Netflix do buy Warner Brothers, there's a possibility that it could come back, but it's probably highly unlikely. But at least we got some great films. Man of Steel was fantastic, really enjoyed that one. But yeah, this new Superman, I don't know. I've seen the trailer for Supergirl. Yeah, I might watch it, but again, I'm getting that Guardians of the Galaxy vibe. I kind of just feel that maybe James Gunn just likes to do that kind of film, very light-hearted. I like DC far darker, so yeah, I'm not really that invested in the new DC universe, if I'm honest. Okay, so the final film that, again, I saw this on streaming and actually thoroughly enjoyed this film as part of a franchise. Again, one that I've only got one of the films from this franchise. Haven't felt the need to pick up the other films, but it is The Conjuring 4, The Last Rites. Now, again, I really enjoyed this one far more than the previous one, which was kind of more of a court case. I mean, obviously, all of these are based on the Warren accounts, things that have happened. And this very much centres around a mirror that's haunted. And yeah, it's a kind of sort of end of the chapter, I suppose, for the Warrens. Although I think this film has been very successful, so I'm sure they're going to do some sort of spin-off to it. I don't think this is the end of the Conjuring universe films. Again, I think they're maybe trying to bring the daughter into it, which goes against the real daughter of the Warrens. She wanted nothing to do with this. It's more the son-in-law that sort of presides over the the sort of haunted room with all the artifacts now. I do believe the house has been bought by a YouTuber who is a ghost hunter and has actually turned it into a bit of an Airbnb so that people can go and stay there and go to see the museum. But I know that the son-in-law, who is in, the character of the son-in-law is in The Conjuring 4. And yeah, I really enjoyed this film. It was a return to form from the previous film. My favourite being The Conjuring 2, which was the Enfield case, although again quite loosely sort of built on the sort of true events that happened with the poltergeist and all that. They bring in the nun in that film, which again quite like the Nun films. But again, I haven't picked those up. But yeah, The Conjuring 4, really entertaining film. I probably would watch this again at some point, but again, only on streaming. It's not something I don't feel the need to pick up the Conjuring films. So yeah, Conjuring 4. Okay, so let's go on to the films that came out in 2025, but I haven't watched yet. Now, there's only 4 films here that I would quite like to see, but just haven't got round to seeing. And the first one is the film Sinners. Now, I've heard from a lot of people that they really enjoyed this film. Stars Michael B. Jordan, I think, and it's to do with a sort of vampires. I think that's set in the past. Yeah, I'm intrigued to see that. Again, it's probably not something I would necessarily pick up on physical media, but it's something I would like to see. So yeah, at some point in 2026, I'll get to see Sinners. And following on from that is the film Novocaine, which again stars Jack Quaid. Again, I've not seen this one. Heard good things about it. I know AJ over at AJ's Movie Place thoroughly enjoyed this film. So yeah, I'd like to see it at some point. So again, I'll wait for it to drop on streaming and check out Novocaine. Another film I didn't manage to see, and it's the film Nobody 2, starring Bob Odenkirk. Again, I quite enjoyed the first Nobody film. I have heard this one probably isn't quite as good as the first one. Very much similar sort of thing. It's kind of along the lines of John Wick, but the everyday man sort of approach. Did enjoy the first one. Don't have that on physical media, but I would like to see Nobody 2 again, probably on streaming at some point in 2026. And the final film that I'd like to see in 2026 is the Apple TV film The Lost Bus, starring Matthew McConaughey. Yeah, I've heard good things about this. Again, this is based on a true story, kind of a disaster film. So yeah, I really like the disaster genre, kind of on true events as well. Always interesting to sort of hear, what's happened in this particular scenario. And yeah, it's one that I'd like to see. Probably take out a free trial of Apple TV at some point. So that's my list of films which are one-time watches for me. The odd one or two there that I may revisit at some point, but a lot of these are films that, yeah, they're okay to watch once, but I wouldn't revisit them. So stick down in the comments. Is there anything in here that you really liked out of this list that you would have in your top 10 films of 2025? Or would you agree that these films are, yeah, just one-time watches? I guess if you're a horror fan, probably some of these films would be in your top 10. And for me, I can take or leave the horror genre. I don't generally collect much horror, but I do like to watch them sort of, one-time watches. And there's the odd film in here that I would certainly watch again. So, thanks ever so much for watching the video. Take care. See you next time.